we have to turn the magazine on.
Charge up that magazine.
Yeah. Nice and smooth, like a Mauser.
ファトブラスターズ
You got a new toy.
That's true.
Whoa, that's a Mauser.
Yeah.
It's a Mauser 98.
It's the Mauser Springfield Ringfield.
Yeah, so it's an 03A3.
Yep.
It's a gun.
It's one of the guns of all time.
Yeah, no, so it's hard to talk about the Springfield without talking about the pattern 1903, right? And the evolution of the 30-06 and all that kind of like revolves around this gun. Everyone kind of agrees that the 03A3 is the most shootable of the Springfields, and it's all down to the fact that it has a very reasonable aperture sight.
I mean, it's a really, really nice sight, I think. I like it a lot better than the Mauser style sights.
Well, the problem with the Mauser style sights on the pattern 03 Springfields are that everything is so unbelievably hair thin, and even on this, the front sight is kind of razor blade-ish.
And I was surprised to learn that like sight protectors weren't the norm on these sorts of things. Like there's not even protector blades.
Right. So they aren't, but it's an interesting thing, right? Because it arose out of, the whole gun arose out of, conflicts with the Mausers and this and that. And then, of course, people are always like, oh, we stole the whole gun from the Germans. And it's like, did we? Whatever. I mean, sure. And also the whole, there's just so much fun lore around these.
Right.
Like the early guns being unsafe to shoot and all that.
Because the heat treat of the
because they heat treated it the way they did back in the day by looking at it. And, I'm of the opinion that the earlier serial number guns, if they haven't already blown up, they're going to be fine.
Right, and then it also comes down to there's people that are putting modern day hot rod 30-06 in guns that like,
yeah,
and I guess like the doubly difficult thing there is like modern pressure measuring equipment lets you load ammo hotter than it was done in the day when they were using like the little copper crushers.
Yeah,
because like that's they were able to get close with those. Don't get me wrong. But it's still an estimation at best, whereas modern pressure testing equipment is better when you can use rupture discs or electronic, do straight up electronic measuring systems.
Right.
So modern pressure testing has come a very long way, something they didn't have back then. And modern 30-06 can be loaded hot enough that it breaks grand op rods or whatever else. And so
the interesting thing about the Springfield then is that it is, by design, because it's a Mauser derivative, strong enough to withstand it.
Especially in the action,
right?
Goofy levels of strength,
right?
In terms of factor of safety, like people have hot rodded Mausers to stuff that's. In fact, there's even people who are doing like regular old Mauser actions, like 98 actions of the rebarreling of 338. Like that's a significant step up from where they belonged. Even the Germans in World War II were taking Mauser 98s and loading it with overpressure ammo for their armor penetration purposes.
Yeah.
And this same ammo that would then be unsafe in machine guns. Of course, I'm not sure how much of that is FUD lore versus they were just like, stop putting armor piercing stuff in machine guns because you waste it. Stop shooting our hardened steel and tungsten. We don't have that much of that left.
Right. Yeah. So it's all fun. And another thing is, when you look down the sight, it's very M1 carbine reminiscent, the rear sight. So of the Springfields, the 03A3 is definitely my favorite. I also just don't like them that much.
Yeah.
It's a very crunchy action, and I think that all comes down to the machining quality.
I think some of them, especially this one, like lack some of the smoothness that you'll find in a Mauser.
Yeah.
Like in a good Mauser. There are bad Mausers, and there's good Mausers.
And we've got examples of these, and they all feel kind of the same. Yeah. There's just that little bit of crunchiness to it. That doesn't mean it doesn't work. It doesn't mean it's not safe. It's just not as user pleasurable an experience.
Right. Some of these just tend to have, like, especially feeding going forward initially, they tend to feed like infield people think that all Mauser actions do, where it's just got like you have to go.
Yeah. But it's an incredibly shootable gun,
and a trigger like that on a military gun is nothing to laugh about.
No.
That's pretty good, especially considering some Mauser triggers are like, why has it got a 9-pound trigger on a bolt gun?
Yeah, no. So it's fascinating. The thing that I've always laughed at on these is that, okay, I can understand why the Pattern 03 had a mag cutoff. It was doctrinal.
Right.
By the time we get to the 03A3, though, like...
It doesn't make sense, and there's a non-trivial amount of complexity that's added by having that stupid thing on the side of the gun.
Right, and so it's necessary for disassembly, right? Because that's your disassembly position. But that could be handled so many other ways. Like the Mauser box, that's great. Yep. And the Japanese use it in the Type 99, which is a great gun too. I do really like how early America this is, because your magazine says off and on, and then when you actually go to fire, it's ready or safe. I just love the ready. Yeah. I don't know. There's something about ready, but anyway, it's a cool and
I guess because like make ready.
Yeah, yeah. It's a cool and charming gun, for sure. And there's not that much more to say about it, really.
I mean, it's interesting to see its lineage with the Mauser. Looking at them side by side, you can definitely see it's like this didn't come from nowhere.
Right. Are you trying to take it out? You turned it off.
Oh, there we go. Middle position.
Middle, yeah.
And I guess it's got some of the Mauser safety features, like it's got your redundant locking lug here, which it does have some of the redundant safety features from the Mauser. So it's got your extra locking lug, which on this gun is a big, beefy, cheeky boy. That's a big one.
Yeah.
And
there's more mass on that than the two real locking lugs combined.
It sort of has a flow through mechanism. So if you punctured a primer, which is another concern, especially with ammo back then, because they were. This especially came out of a time where there was a lot of guessing that went into the ammo manufacturer. Yeah. But if a primer is punctured, gas vents through this hole and then can vent out the side of the receiver instead of it trying to do funny things to you in your face.
Right. Yeah. No. It's cool.
It's certainly especially by the time that this rolled around, it is a very mature realization of the Mauser action from a standpoint of they knew what they were doing. Like some of the early Mausers, doing what ends up being essentially just one lug and all sorts of silly stuff. By this time, they had really matured it to a very advanced stage,
including the usage of stamped parts, which is just smart.
Right, which is especially for something that came out of this time period. Of course, this is the advanced version, if you will, of the 03. But the incorporation of more stamped parts, I mean, it just makes sense. That was the direction everybody was heading with everything. Yep. It's just sort of unfortunate for this rifle that it never, this pattern never really got a great time to shine.
Right.
I guess it did in the hands of the Marines in the Pacific Theater. They were more common than Garands, as I understand it, right off the bat, because the Marines always get the bad stuff, the used stuff.
Right.
But
hand-me-downs.
But given the choice between this and a Garand for a fighting rifle, it's not going to be a competition. It's going to be a Garand.
Well, then also in World War I, people with the pattern 1903, people always associate the 03 with the United States. It's the American icon. It's the Springfield rifle. Yeah. When
we didn't use a lot of them.
We didn't use a lot of them. It was kind of like the French. The French associate themselves with the Lebel. When if you looked at the average guy in the trench, he had a Berthier.
Right.
Where in World War I, the average American had a pattern 1917 Enfield.
Yep.
And that was the Enfield pattern 17 was by far the best.
They're really nice bolt.
The best repeater of World War I. I think by far and away, it had excellent sights. Everything about it was just solid. And I think that the pattern 03 was kind of Mauser 98 at home.
I think in many ways it plays second fiddle to the 1917 being the only thing that I say I like better about this, just. And again, then this comes down purely to personal preferences. I like cock on open better.
Yeah. Just
from a standpoint of I'm used to it, and I'm sure that just boils down to a training thing.
Whereas I like my first bolt action military service rifle was an Enfield.
Yep.
I like cock on close.
Once you get used to cock on close, then that's just the way it's supposed to be, and anything else is different and offensive.
Because I'm like, I open it easy. Why is it hard to open? And you're like, I close it hard. Why is it hard to close? Yeah. So it's there's nothing wrong with the 03A3. I don't think. And also, you know what? This is one of the only guns we've talked about. I don't think it has an undeserved reputation. I think it's exactly right.
Specifically the sniper variants.
Oh,
people like to associate with them being hyper accurate and super good. And, those scopes are like the ones where you adjust the alignment of the scope, not the alignment of the crosshairs, because nobody knew what they were doing yet. And again, accurate rifles back in this day were made by mistake.
Right.
They
pick the ones off.
Right. The rifles that grouped well,
mm-hmm.
and those were the ones that became snipers. And it was very interesting with the British because they got to the point where they wanted more. They wanted more of the rifles for the guys who actually knew how to shoot.
Right.
Than they were actually making accurate by mistake, and that's what sort of led them to develop an actual sniper rifle program.
Right.
And of course, with the Garand snipers, it was sort of the same thing, where it's like these were the accurate ones, and then they eventually made these are the mass-produced ones, and so they just took Garands that weren't actually that much more accurate than the rest and put a scope on them, and it's just
it actually doesn't really matter.
Because eventually, right? Because at the end of the day, everybody, I don't know that they really learned the lesson, but I think there was a realization by some of the lesson that a 3-minute angle rifle with a scope is much more effective in the hands of an average shooter than a 3-minute angle rifle without the scope. It's the addition of the scope is the force multiplier. Yeah. It's not the fact that it's your more accurate one.
Right, exactly. But yeah, so I mean, we shot it. You know what? It shoots good. Every time I shoot one of these, though, I love the sight because Mausers don't have that nice rear aperture. But when I'm handling it, when I'm loading it, when I'm doing all this stuff, it just feels like Mauser 98 at home.
Yep.
And I can't.
It feels just like a little bit more coarse 98 in almost every regard. And I've shot quite a bit of my 98s because these have this different sight and they've got this different milling feature here. If you're left-handed, as I'm
if you're principally left-handed,
right? I'm crippled as being. Whenever you go to close the bolt, if you're running the bolt like this, you can smash your pinky between the bolt handle and the sight very easily.
Yeah, which he did. He got himself solid.
But a little bit. But on the Mauser, don't do that. I don't have that problem.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think it's just a difference in, on the Mauser there isn't a sight here. It's just rounded off.
Yep, exactly. No, I did that opening the bolt on an FR7 or whatever it was, which has that set mirror sight, and I just lacerated the shit out of my pinky.
It's amazing because I didn't think I was slamming the bolt home that hard, but it really gives you a picture of this
is what you're doing.
I got 1903 pinky. It's a new one.
Yeah.
All the troops, all the boys got that.
Yeah. All right, guys. That's the 0383. Shoot it a bit. Let us know what you think about why this was actually the sniper's rifle and your dad killed every single Jap that was ever born.
All of them.
With this gun.
With one round.
Yeah.
Collateral, even.
Yeah. Both. Enough kick. Take the Hun down.
And then it did it to the other ones too.
In the Great War. So we have to turn the magazine on.
Charge up that magazine.
Yeah. Nice and smooth like a Mauser.
Yeah.
They call that the mad moment.
The mad period over. I'm gonna do this shit left-handed. I'm gonna try it. That's what they needed.
You gotta be the opposite. Yeah.
Arms outstretched. Fuck. It's not meant for left-handed people to do it. Woo. Hold that one to the left, but geez, that shoots good.